Oh, looks like you're recording.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, I think I should have thought of a kind of an introduction for the
That's fine.
maybe this is a good one. Yeah, I should have thought about it. But anyway, let me just get the questions here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're here. All right. Okay. So we're starting right now.
Okay.
Hello, listeners. Yeah. So welcome to the I don't know, I don't have a name for the podcast, but let's just call it maybe the best podcast ever so far. Yeah.
Good name.
Yeah. And well, for this first episode, I have the presence of a really special person.
Aw.
Yeah. Actually, Vince, I was thinking about it. Well, let me finish the introduction. Yeah. So my my online friend, yeah, Vince, um, we got to know each other because of chess, right,
Hmm.
Vince? And I was thinking about that actually before because yeah, in this episode, of course, as usual, yeah, I want to do this in every episode. I ask my students, yeah, for questions about. So in this case, since Vince is American, about the American culture, yeah, and
Hmm.
maybe some comparisons between Brazilian and American culture. And and I was I was kind of thinking actually, how was the really the first time that we talked
I was.
on Slack? I don't
Yeah.
remember that.
I tried to remember too because I can't remember. I should have looked to see if we were on a team together. I assume we were on a
Mm,
team together.
yeah.
But what may have happened instead is maybe we played each other in a game. Like maybe you were on a different
Oh,
team. I don't know. So anyway,
oh,
you and I
yeah,
started talking about chess, and we did puzzles together, and we did like
yeah.
practice games. Um,
And games.
End games. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It kind of one thing led to another.
Yeah. Wow, very, very, very fun. Very cool to remember because it's been like a long time already. Yeah, like probably like 3 or 4 years ago, something
Probably.
like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep.
Really cool. Yeah. So yeah, maybe we played it against each other. That's probably how everything started.
Yeah. Like in those
Probably.
days, you and I were about the same level, but now I think
Mhm.
you're
Yeah.
better. It's I don't
No,
play
no,
anymore.
not so much, I guess,
Hard to say.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. This Anyway, all right, very cool. So, well, I think this maybe the best way to start this would be if you talk about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe your educational background, where you were born, also,
Hmm.
and your professional background. Yeah, basically, how everything you did to get where you are right now. Yeah.
Right, right. All right. So I was born basically here. I live in a little tiny town north of Eugene, Oregon.
Mm,
Oregon's one of the states in the U.S. It's one that people don't hear about very often because we're just sort of like we're not California, we're not Washington. People just skip Oregon, but we're here. It's very green here. It rains a lot.
mhm.
Uh,
Cool.
so I grew up in Eugene and I went to the university there. I studied chemistry. And I kind of had some kind of science kind of jobs after I left
Mm,
Oregon, went to grad school for a while in chemistry. But then later in my career, a friend of mine said, "Hey, well, maybe you should think about doing software, um, and development work and that sort of thing." But it was like testing. So I've been a
mhm.
software tester for a lot of my career. And I
Which
was
has
like,
nothing to do with chemistry. Yeah.
nothing to do with chemistry. And so I was actually in grad school at the time studying all this stuff. And my friend who was doing it said, "Oh, you should think about it." And I was like, it was a good career decision. I switched and I made a lot more money than I would have ever made in chemistry, which
Uh-huh.
I
Cool.
feel bad because I miss chemistry. It's really interesting.
Mhm.
But whatever. Uh, so I worked at Microsoft, I worked at Amazon, I worked at
Really?
Oracle, um,
Wow.
and then my most recent job I worked at Zillow. So I've kind of like bounced around to a lot of different places. And yeah, like Professionally, I think that's the short story. The long story,
Mhm.
I'm not sure anyone would care.
Yeah, interesting. Wow, very
Oh,
cool.
one thing
So,
I'll say
mhm,
extra is like I went to university in Colorado. Probably
mhm,
people have heard about Colorado, the Rocky Mountains, and then I also
mhm,
went to grad school in Seattle. It's the University of Washington. So
mhm.
those are the three main places I've lived: is Colorado, Oregon, and Washington.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So Seattle, yeah. Well, whenever somebody talks about Seattle, I remember my favorite, one of my favorite bands, Soundgarden.
sure. Yeah.
Well, wait a second. Probably when you were living there, you were almost basically living the best times, yeah, when it comes to music there.
Almost. So Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, they were more early mid 90s, and I
Hmm.
moved there in 2000 or 98.
Oh, I
So by the
see. Yeah.
time I moved there, everybody already knew about them. They were big stars by that time, and they
Mhm.
did play. I never went to see them. Like Nirvana, I missed that whole thing because I think Kurt Cobain may have been dead by then. But when I
Mhm.
was there, there were little bands that kind of became big later by
Mhm.
Built to Spill, maybe. A band that I really love called Sleater Kinney is from
Mhm.
Olympia down south. Anyway, we had our own
Yeah.
music, but it was not the big bands.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
sure. Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's also Alice in Chains.
yeah. Are they from Seattle too?
I guess so.
Yeah. I know it's
Not sure.
that same kind of type of music, but yeah, I don't
Oh, yeah,
know.
yeah. Yeah, then
There's so
maybe
much
they're not
music.
up there yet. Exactly. Yeah, so it's interesting because these bands that you mentioned, I don't know them at all, and probably
Mm,
Brazilian people don't know it as well, because basically, well, we're gonna get to know just the international ones, yeah.
sure. Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
All right. So thank you so much,
Mm,
Vince, for your presentation. Yeah, for introduction, actually.
yeah, yeah.
Well, next question. So basically, we can start now, yeah, with the questions that some of my students sent.
Mhm.
And well, since we were talking about living in some specific places in the U.S., maybe we can start with this one. I thought it was really funny because I have this student. Her name is Vanessa. So
Mhm.
shout out to Vanessa, yeah, Vanessa, if she's listening right now. So she has already been to the US, I don't know, probably more than 2 or 3 times.
Mm.
Not
Wow.
sure because her son is a flight attendant.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I think he's not traveling so much. I mean, actually, he's not working as a flight attendant right now, as far as I remember from what she told me. But well, she has the opportunity to travel a lot, basically. Yeah,
Hmm.
and she came up with this very specific question: the
Okay.
difference between Chicago's and New York's pizza. Do you
Right.
have any information about that?
Yeah. So Chicago is very unusual pizza. I
Uh,
think New York pizza is what most people think more of as a typical pizza. It's
mm,
thinner, it's
mm,
crispier, it has kind of
mm.
probably fewer toppings. Whereas um, you go to Chicago, they will make you a pizza that is this thick and it's got crust that's this
Jesus.
thick and it's got a ton of cheese and a ton of toppings. And it's just like this project to cut it and like put it on your
Jesus.
plate. You,
Wow.
when I had it, um, you can pick it up with your hands, but it's almost more you need a fork and a knife. It's really thick. It's good, but there's this comedian named Jon Stewart in the US who says he's from New York and he's like, that's not pizza, that's a casserole. Do you know this
Yeah.
word casserole? It's like
No, I don't. I don't know the word. It sounds familiar, but I don't know what it is.
yeah, in the US we make a lot of casseroles. You take a wide deep dish and then you just fill it to the top with like meat
Mm.
and
Ah,
mushrooms and like gravy. And it's like, it's so thick. It isn't like pizza's supposed to be kind of flatter. Anyway,
yeah,
my take on it is that Chicago pizza is good, but it's not what I would usually get.
yeah, it's more like a pie. Yeah, pie of
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yep.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, and well, there's this difference regarding pizza, which is apparently a big, kind of a big thing. Yeah, if we
Mhm.
compare the two cities. But what about other places in the US when it comes to food? You know,
Mm.
because, for example, in general, when we think of typical dishes from Brazil to talk to foreigners, from our point of view, we're gonna mention always the northeastern
Mm.
dishes. I
Okay.
don't know, probably because they are more typical because of history. I don't know actually why, but yeah, but they're definitely not gonna mention a typical dish from São Paulo where I live, because this
Okay.
is whatever, this is just a
Yeah.
big city, the most important financial city in Brazil, but there's nothing I mean cultural here. I mean
Right.
there is, but of course it's not so important as other places
Okay.
in the country. Yeah. So what about the US? Do you feel that what are the would you say the most typical dishes?
Hmm.
I know, for example, the apple pie is very traditional when it comes to
Yes.
celebrations. For example, I think 4th of July probably, or
Anytime.
is it
People love apple pie
Thanksgiving? Yeah.
anytime. So for Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's more pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie,
Mm,
pecan pie, those are more like specific to that time of year. If you make a pumpkin pie in March, people are like, it's good. They'll eat it, but they're like, why are you making this in March?
I see.
Right.
Interesting.
So yeah, America is huge, and so there are types of food that are specific to locations, but there's a lot of them. So some that come out that I think of is in Louisiana. You asked about Mardi Gras. There is all of this like shrimp and like something called gumbo, which is this really like lots of crazy stuff happening in this soup. Like it can be almost made in a bunch of different ways, all kinds of ingredients, a lot of seafood, blah blah blah, spicy usually. So that's like Louisiana has its own specific kind of food that if you try to order that somewhere else, like
Uh-huh.
in Wyoming, it's not going to be as good because you
I see.
really need the deep knowledge to do it correctly.
Yeah.
But then there's something like barbecue. Everybody makes barbecue, and some
Mhm.
people say they make it better than others. You go to
Yeah.
right. So it's like, I don't know, Texas, Alabama, like a lot of the South kind of owns barbecue because they're really
Mhm.
really good at it.
I
But it's
see.
like everybody can make pretty decent barbecue.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many. I could go on and on.
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah.
Phil, here's one like maybe people don't know about is that something called a Philadelphia cheesesteak sandwich,
Mm.
which is a big roll of bread, long roll of bread that you cut in the middle, and then you put a bunch of like sliced steak in the middle, and then
Mm.
you cover it with cheese, which
Wow.
sounds weird, but and then there's probably some kind of like barbecue sauce on there as well. That can
Mm.
be amazing if you get someone to make it really good. That's
Yeah,
really good.
yeah,
And Philadelphia makes that really well. I had one when I was there, and it's like, sure, it's a little better.
yeah. Sounds very tasty, but I don't know if it's healthy though. Yeah.
No, a lot of American food is just like it's it's all the exaggerations, right, about Americans being overweight. There's so
Oh
much food, and I think this is becoming a problem all over the world. Like,
yeah.
kind of a lot of people have plenty of food now, so we just love to eat, right? Everybody
Yeah.
around the world eat, eat, eat,
Mhm.
and it's fun, but it's
Yeah.
bad for you. It's bad for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so maybe since you already mentioned that, you could maybe explain to our listeners, yeah, how specifically. Oh, maybe we can also compare it to the carnival here in Brazil, yeah,
Hmm.
because to be completely honest with you, when I think it was Vanessa again who mentioned about the Mardi Gras, and I felt kind of embarrassed because, because I've been a teacher for what, like 9 or 10 years,
Hmm.
and Mardi Gras, what is that again? I didn't remember, like about
Oh,
the culture and everything. And then I looked it up and I saw it's kind of similar to Carnival, basically the same celebration, yeah.
I think
But
it's
of
the
course,
same,
yeah,
but
yeah, uh,
nobody does it like Brazil. I mean, Brazil is the world champion on terms of Mardi
yeah.
Gras. Like,
Uh-huh.
I long ago heard about this and I saw the pictures and I was like, wow. In New Orleans is really the home for America of Mardi Gras. You don't go to any other city, like no other city even does anything. It's only
Mm.
New Orleans, and
Oh yeah,
it's
cool.
fine. They do floats, they have music, they have a
Mhm.
lot of drinking. It's a party, but you guys are the champions.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It's like it's a celebration in the whole territory, and well, they're basically the rich people who go to the parades, yeah.
Mm,
And but there are also celebrations on the streets, yeah, like as the things that we call here blocking. So it's like a very popular organization of people,
mm,
celebrating, drinking, and
hmm
crazy things on the street. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's
So it's
funny
just in
too.
New Orleans.
What's that?
So it's just in New Orleans, basically.
As far as I know, there is no other city in the US that makes any attempt to put on a show.
I see.
I think there are Catholics for whom Lent is a very important thing. And so all over the country there are Catholic people, and they observe Lent, and then they maybe do something slightly special for Mardi Gras.
Mhm.
But that's not the point for them. The point is the worship and the
Yeah,
spiritual aspect of it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a funny thing.
But there's not much of any spiritual thing in the celebration here in Brazil.
Yeah, but I think Brazil is still a pretty Catholic country, right?
Oh yeah, it
Yeah,
is. It
yeah,
is.
yeah. But it's different. It's different. It doesn't have that kind of I don't know. I just think that Catholicism is probably very different in Brazil than it is in Mexico.
Hmm.
Like a lot of South America, Central America, it's just very different than it is here,
Oh yeah, sure.
in complicated ways. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So let's check the best topic. Again, since we're talking about food,
Mm,
celebrations, I'm gonna come up with this crazy question.
yeah.
Probably the craziest question is mine.
Okay.
Um, in one of the schools in which I taught, I remember there like it was a very good school with TV, always with series in English, books for you to to read, and you know
Hmm.
and inside the classrooms there were like these kind of paintings or pictures, I don't know, or things about basically curiosities from English speaking countries.
Mm,
In one of probably the main classroom there, there was one of these things from the US, and I was reading it. And I remember reading that, as I wrote to you previously, yeah, if you burp after you eat, it's not a big deal. It's
oh,
actually maybe a kind of a compliment, like, wow, the food was delicious. I really ate it.
right.
It was so good. And when I read that, I thought, oh, okay, maybe I have already seen something like this in some American movies, maybe, but I'm not so sure. So that question has always like stayed with me for a long time. Now
Right.
I finally have the opportunity
Yeah.
to ask it.
So I've heard of
Because
that
I'm sorry,
yeah,
just here in
sure.
Brazil, if you burp on the table, it's right. It's really, or at the table, yeah, it's really kind of disrespectful. And I mean, for example, I'm going to talk about I don't know about the listeners. Yeah, maybe they
Uh-huh.
will be a little bit shocked, but I burp all the time, and
Mm,
it's here in my house. It's okay. It's not a big problem because it's just my wife and I. Yeah,
yeah.
but if you are with friends, of course, in a kind of a more formal uh,
Right.
or in a restaurant, for example, if you burp, no, it's really bad, like, oh, Jesus, you're so impolite.
Kind of. And so I feel like in the US, I've heard of that in other countries. And I know that I've just heard that this is absolutely true in some countries. But in the
Mhm.
US, it's funny. If you do that, it's funny. Someone will
Uh,
laugh. But if
I
you're in
see.
a business meeting or if you are with polite company,
Uh-huh.
and really even at home, you apologize. You say, "Oh, excuse me." Right?
Oh, I
Yeah, and
see.
you
Yeah.
I would say you try not to. Like,
Hmm.
it's something that nearly everybody can control. So you don't
Sure.
do
Yeah.
that because it just sounds kind of rude or something to us. Like,
Uh-huh.
if you're with like fun friends or whatever, then nobody cares. It doesn't
I
matter.
see.
But
Uh-huh.
it's still something everyone would comment on.
I
Like,
see.
if I think of all the times I hung out with friends, we're doing a bunch of eating. If someone were to do that, we would all laugh and nobody would be offended, but we'd all like, we would be something to make it kind of make fun of the person about it.
I
So
see.
now there's maybe parts in America where that's not true, but it's like, I just don't know about that. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Yeah. Huh. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so I think I would say that that information that I read was this is slightly incorrect because I do remember reading it was something like kind of a compliment almost.
Yes.
You know, like like oof, delicious food. I ate it.
Yeah.
It was really special, and then boom, I burped
So there's that whole
because
thing
of that.
about if you're a guest somewhere, you should always leave a little bit of food on your plate. And this is
Oh,
not true in America, but there's some places where in
oh,
the world where you leave a little bit, and that indicates that you couldn't possibly eat anymore. That the
uh,
host has given you so much food that
uh-huh.
you are not hungry anymore, and that way
I
they know,
see.
okay, good, I can relax. Because
Uh,
if you're the host, you're supposed to make sure that the person is satisfied. Like in
mm,
America, we don't care. Like eat
yeah,
whatever, you know.
yeah. Yeah, these some of these etiquette things that just don't make sense. Yeah, because well, you're leaving food. No, don't leave food. It's a kind of a sin, you know. Food is good, and we should eat it. Yeah.
Yeah. And in America, I think the joke is that you can always eat more. Like, when are
Mm,
you done? You're only done when you're miserable. You're only done when you're like, so, yeah, we like to eat and eat and eat. So,
cool. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That's nice. Well, let's check here if we have other things related to food or cultural aspects. Probably yes. When it comes to, for example, houses. This is
Mm,
a question from my wife.
mm,
Uh-huh. So not my students right
okay.
now. My wife. Well, oh man, I forgot to do this research because we do have a show here. I mean, it's not ours. Yeah, it's American.
Mm,
I just got it here. It's called Property Brothers. Oh, but it's
right.
Canadian. Wow, I didn't know that.
It's
It's
what?
actually Canadian.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that either.
Property Brothers. Yeah.
Hmm.
And in the translation here to Portuguese, it was like really, really well done because it's something like brothers working, but there's a kind of a double sense there
Mm,
because the word brothers is also like hands working, something like that. I don't know
mm,
how to explain that, but in Portuguese, the name of the show is Irmãos à Obra. Yeah.
okay.
So, uh, well, and this is not the only show, of course. We see scenes sometimes of houses being destroyed on movies, for example. Yeah,
Mm,
and I think every Brazilian, when a Brazilian sees this, they think like, huh, what a fragile house, you know?
oh,
Because basically, I know there's a structure. Of course, I'm not an architect or I'm not
yeah.
even an engineer, so I don't know actually how it works. But it's basically some parts of the house are made of wood.
Mm,
Yeah, like the wall sometimes maybe. Of course, there's some as far as I can see, yeah, there's some thick wood in some
hmm.
places, which is not like, oh my god, are gonna lean on it and it's gonna
Yeah.
fall. No. But at the same time, because if we compare to the material that we use here in Brazil to make like poor
Yeah.
houses, the slums or favelas, yeah,
Yeah.
all houses are made. I mean, depends, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe there can be some houses that are
Uh-huh.
made with some really really bad materials, but in general, the houses are made with
Hmm,
bricks. Yeah,
okay.
which makes them really strong, of course. But well, and then we know probably it's because of the natural disasters. I don't
Yeah.
know. And when it
Maybe.
comes to budget, my wife and my mom were talking, and according to my wife's knowledge, which is very great, but when it comes to American culture, not so
Right.
great, of course.
Right.
Yeah. She thinks it's basically like the same budgeting. There's not much of a big difference. Oh, it's not like that Americans or Brazilians are trying to save money. No, it's just a matter of culture, indeed. So, do you
Oh,
have any information about that? Do
yeah.
you know why? Like, there's such a big difference when it comes to building houses.
Right. Okay. So I'm not an architect either, but here's my thought. What I was always told growing up is that if you build a house out of brick, that's expensive. For whatever reason, in the US, like bricks are rare. Like you'll see brick houses, but it's generally not the entire house is made of bricks. It's more like the front. Someone will
I
put
see.
kind of a fake front that's
Ah,
not even really brick. Or they really will make the front out of brick and then the rest is out of wood, I guess.
mhm.
Just because it's expensive, the amount of labor where you have to lay the bricks and then put on the grout or not grout, the
Oh,
cement, like
uh-huh.
that's a much more labor intensive process.
Oh,
Um, there's also
interesting.
problems maybe with like insulation or something. We have a lot of code. We have a lot of
Mhm.
rules about how a building has to be built. Every state has their own rules.
I
As
see.
far as I know, there's no real national rule. It's more like
Mm.
state by state. We are, and I'm not sure if it's that we have so much wood. Like I think of Brazil as having tons of wood. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but we also, because when like my family actually was loggers, so half of my family
Oh,
anyway, like well maybe even both sides did some logging because Oregon has a ton of trees. Tree, tree,
uh-huh.
tree. So
Cool.
out here, but it's not just Oregon that has all wooden houses. Like the whole country, like a lot of wooden houses. At least the structure, the walls are this stuff called well, it's either plywood or it's gypsum, kind of like drywall.
Mhm.
I assume that's what you guys do too.
Yeah.
And in terms of the strength of that, I think it's fine. But you're right; it's not going to be the same as brick. Like you build a brick house, like it's there, it's really really strong. But
Uh-huh.
you have to run the plumbing through all that too, right?
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
nice thing about a wooden building is that you've got this space. You've got the wood
Oh,
structure, and then you can
right.
drill holes through, and then all the plumbing, all the
Sure.
electrical can all run through there. So
Yeah.
I guess it kind of like has its pros and cons. I don't know.
Huh.
Now, in
That's
New
really,
York
really
City and
interesting.
in old cities in the US, then you get stone. Like when they were first getting going, like there's a lot
Huh.
of, because they came from Europe, and in Europe they did a lot of stone houses, I guess. So
Huh.
the buildings that have survived anyway are those that are like the old ones are in America. What counts for old is 200 years old. If it's 200
Uh,
years old, that's really old. But in Europe, of course, it's like
oh, yeah.
anything less than 1,000 years old is not old.
Yeah, of
Right.
course. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
that's
really,
my
really
thought.
interesting,
Yeah.
actually. I never thought about it because, for example, you're right. I just had a kind of a plumbing problem, not in my house, but I mean, I did have one here in my backyard as well, and another one like in front of my house on the street.
Hmm.
So both times, you're right. They had to break, like with a specific machines, destroy everything to have access to
Yep.
the plumbing system. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Oh, right. Because if something goes wrong inside that wall, oh,
Yeah,
it's a lot of work to get through all the brick or something
yeah,
to fix it. But I
absolutely.
suspect what they do is they run it along the side outside the wall. They don't actually go through the inside, but then that would look funny, right? To have
No,
the
no, yeah, it's
cables
in
going.
the inside.
When you go to, I don't know if
It's
you've been to
inside
like
of that wall.
Italy, but in Italy or, Paris or whatever, where they have a lot of old buildings, it
Hmm.
is interesting to see all of the things they've needed to do to work around the problem of we have an old building that we're not allowed to screw around with. Like this building was
Sure.
here 700 years ago,
Oh
and
yeah,
we're
sure.
just temporarily looking after it, right? If we screw it
Uh-huh.
up, everybody's going to be mad at us. So
Sure.
so we have to run things along the outside of the wall. We have to like make a little tiny hole, because every hole you drill, well, that's forever, right? You've drilled this
Yeah.
hole. It's like the pyramids. I love history, so it's like I've been watching a lot of videos about the pyramids.
Hmm.
Definitely that, because those are 4,000 years old. It's like
Yeah.
every time you make any decision about drilling a hole, you have this committee to
Mm.
decide whether it's okay.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Uh, Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And another, sorry, and another point about the brick houses, not just the maintenance that, that
Mm.
that you said when it comes to pipes,
Hmm.
But also about the price. That is interesting because then you said I don't know if we have that much wood, and probably there's a lot of wood in Brazil as well.
Yeah.
But maybe I have a theory.
Mm.
Tell me how it sounds to you. Because we are unfortunately yet a third world country, yeah?
Mm.
So probably things like wood here, okay, they might be abundant,
Mm.
but well, they're not for us basically. Also,
Uh,
yeah, maybe they are exported. I don't know, because I
oh,
have the sensation that if we when it comes to wood here in Brazil, like original, really good
mm.
quality, it's not so cheap. It's really
Mm.
expensive. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Well,
maybe building houses out of wood here in Brazil, that would be expensive, probably. I don't
maybe.
know.
And it's the type of wood that grows too. So in the
Mm,
US, maybe we have
right.
a lot of nice, tall, straight trees. Like we have a
That's
lot of
true.
evergreens, we have a lot of like, I don't know, oak trees. But maybe in Brazil, it's more like tropical rainforest trees, and they're all
Exactly
like this.
that.
And you have to
You're
have
right.
all of the mills, you have to have all the lumberjacks who have this
Mm,
talent of picking the right tree, putting it on the
exactly.
truck, taking it to the lumber mill, da 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 da. So it's
You're right.
you build up all this infrastructure around it, and maybe in
Yeah,
Brazil they just haven't done that. So I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Very good point. I think
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. When you said evergreen, I remember about chess like this because of
Yeah.
the game. Yeah?
Oh, about
The
what?
evergreen game, remember?
Ever what?
The
Evergreen?
evergreen.
Is it
Yeah,
a game?
yeah. Don't you remember that? The evergreen game
Oh, in chess.
in chess. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Right. I was like, what is he talking about? I thought video game.
Oh no, no, no,
Yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, the Evergreen game, that's Morphe, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Morphe. Yeah.
Let's check here very quick. Evergreen game. It's Morphy. No, no, no. It's Adolf Anderson
Oh.
and probably a French name, Jean Dauphin. I don't know.
Huh?
1852. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it's
That's a
a
long,
good
yeah.
one.
Yeah, it's funny to think about a game people are still talking about near 175 years later.
Yeah,
That's that's an evergreen game. That's a
it's
game
a
that has
special game.
stood the
Exactly.
test of time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Okay,
Hey,
so I think
who's the greatest Brazilian chess player of all time?
ah, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have a player who is still alive, but he doesn't play
Mm.
professionally anymore. Actually, it's been a long time he has stopped. His name is Henrique Mekin,
Mm.
but he's known here in Brazil because of his second name as Mequinho. Yeah,
Okay.
so he has been already the third in the world.
Whoa.
He was playing together with Talon Fisher. Can you believe that?
Wow.
He has
Wow.
some, I think, some games he drew with Fisher, if I remember correctly. I will
Yeah.
send you some Maquinho games after.
Great. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that was the
Okay.
best we have ever had. I think
Right.
after that, maybe we do have a famous for us. Yeah, another important chess player here called Rafael Leitão, but he has stopped as well.
Mm.
And we had a Brazilian some years ago, like I don't know, maybe two or 3 years ago, playing the I don't know how to say this, but like the challengers, and the challengers division of oh Jesus Christ, I forgot the name of the championship now.
Oh, for like juniors or more for like Norway chess, or what do you mean?
Yeah, that, but in the
Okay.
challengers division.
Oh, okay. Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, a lot of the big tournaments will have that kind of like not the super grandmasters, but the category below that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, I
Which is
don't
still
remember. But it's a very
so
traditional
impressive.
one.
What's that?
Yeah, yeah, it's really impressive. Absolutely, yeah. We
Yeah,
were so
better.
happy, when he we could when he could participate. And
Even the very best players who ever played in our league are nothing compared to that Brazilian who played in the candidates or the challengers league. I mean, that is just such a high level of chess. It's
yeah,
yeah, crazy,
absolutely,
crazy, crazy.
yeah. Well, all right. So now I think we can kind of transition a little bit. I'm checking the questions here to, I mean, it's still cultural, but it's also probably political.
Mm.
Ooh,
Mm.
ooh, like the polemic. Yeah.
You're right, right. That's a good word.
Maybe, no, maybe there's one more kind of a cultural question here.
Mm.
How does it feel? And this is a question of mine as well, but my students will get their questions in a second.
Mm.
So, how does it feel to live in a country from which basically all technology comes from? So, for example, I live in Brazil, but I'm from São Paulo. So sometimes I thought to myself, wow, I live in São Paulo, probably not probably, the richest city in Brazil. I'm kind of lucky, I thought to myself
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah. Because, well, I'm in a good place. I was not born in like in the north
Mm.
extreme with, you know, there's not much. I mean, there's technology everywhere, of course, but
Yeah.
like civilization, big cities, events, etc.
Right.
At the same time, of course, after I also thought, hmm, living this in a big city is not that good. Yeah, it can
Mm.
be bad as well. Living in
Mm-hmm.
the countryside, man, have its benefits, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so and then I thought again, but okay, I don't live in a first world country, but I live in Brazil. Brazil is a good country. Yeah, I don't
Mm.
live in. I was fortunately, I was not born in a poor country, in a very poor country like I don't know, a country from Africa, for
Mm.
example. Yeah, or maybe I don't know any other country here in South America or
Mm.
anyway. Or so on the other hand, and then I thought, how does it feel? Yeah, because for example, basically, well, I think the USA has done a very, or have done a very special job when it comes
Mm.
to dominating the world through culture as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because of course we watch American films, American
Right.
series. We play the American video games, so
Right.
it's America all over. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I thought, how does it feel to be there? Like,
Yeah.
because I am always consuming the things from other countries, and then when we consume something from Brazil, it's good and special. Huh? This
Mm-hmm.
is from Brazil, man. This is Brazilian. So, for
Mm.
example,
Yeah.
my computer is from a Brazilian company. So that is wow. Man, this is Brazil, man. Like good. But
Yeah.
how does it feel like Apple, Microsoft, just when it comes to technology, but basically everything else, yeah, like as we were saying, culture, movies,
Yeah.
series, and
Yeah.
medication or whatever. So, have you ever thought about this?
Oh,
What
yeah.
is your?
Like it's, people use the word privilege, right? It's like,
Yeah,
you are lucky, to be born in the US. It's just lucky.
mm,
It has nothing to do with me. It's just like, oh, this is just the roll of the dice, right?
yeah,
So when I read your question, the thing I thought was like, well, yes, America is very influential and it has a lot of power, huge military, like all of this stuff. And we do have a lot of tech companies. We do have a lot of like industrial power, like building cars, right? It used to be the US built tons of cars all over the world that everybody liked and they were very good.
yeah,
Now, maybe not so much on the cars, right? Like the US is not an industrial economy as much as it's a service economy. So we do
yeah.
software, we do entertainment, financial services, all this kind of thing. It's more service and less building things. So I feel like the rest of the world, Europe, China, Japan, Indonesia, there's a lot of countries that are, you know, overtaking us in terms of technology.
Hmm.
So Germany, my goodness, like so Taiwan is a great example of they make
Yeah.
all of the microchips. All of the microchips are made in Taiwan. And,
Uh-huh.
and we're trying now. I don't know if you've heard about this, but America is trying to catch up on
Uh-huh.
making our own microchips. Our
Oh.
president's like, oh, we're gonna try to catch up. Which,
Mm.
if America puts its mind to something, we have so much money and we have so many universities where we have all these like smart people. People come from all over the world to try to come to our universities so that
Exactly.
they can work together on some technological problem. If we put our mind to it, we can do amazing things. So it's interesting to have grown up just assuming that that's true. When I was a little kid, I think that was more true than it is now. I feel like the world is catching up
Sure.
and
I see.
passing us in some things, which is like great. I don't care. Like I think it's silly to get too attached to your country. It's
Sure.
important to see other people as like they're just people, even if they're not from my country. Like, let them win. I don't care.
Yeah.
So, I was gonna say one other thing about that. I like it. Like you look at India and you look at China and Brazil. They have a lot of people, right? So why shouldn't they, if they work on their education, why shouldn't they be able to beat us in terms of some invention or some business or something like that? Like, well, educationally, probably, I don't know if Brazil is catching up. India and China are really working on it.
Yeah.
They're like dedicated. They're like, look, we have 1 billion people. If we get educated, there's no reason why we can't compete with anybody. Now, we're still richer. We have a bigger economy for now. The EU still has a bigger economy for now, I guess. But it's like, those countries that are going to catch up. Like, okay, good for them. And actually, I was going to mention that there's the BRICS, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of they want to be the next generation to come along and say, we're done with the UN. The UN doesn't matter anymore. It's BRICS. Like, who knows? Maybe. Although Russia is a funny partner, right? So.
It's when it comes to politics, geopolitics, for example, there's always these alliances that are that are done because of the circumstances.
Right.
Like if not Russia, who else? Yeah, it's an influential country, so I think that's why.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, many questions there. Anyway, okay, yeah, that's a very interesting topic. And since we're talking about technology and etc., maybe we can talk now about something that probably people say Brazil is one of the best in the world. And this is not soccer, huh?
Okay.
No, and this is a question from my student Victoria. She's a doctor. And well, of course, the question basically couldn't be different. She's asking about the healthcare system. Because I don't know if you are aware, but here in Brazil we have a kind of a system called a SUS, which I think we could translate to unique health system, something like that. Yeah, so it works all over Brazil, and it's free, completely free.
Right.
You just go there, like to the emergency room, or if you think, I may have diabetes, I don't know, something like this, and then you start, you go to the doctor, to these small units, health units, which in Brazil we call a postinho. Yeah, my mom works at a postinho, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And then in these places you can talk to the doctor, start investigating any health issues. Of course, there's something important to say. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, actually, because, it's a lot of people. And, it's definitely, there are so many things that could be improved. It's not so easy. You have to be very patient, because it's not so fast sometimes. But it's free.
Yep.
And sometimes I watch videos on YouTube, and there you go, YouTube, another American thing. Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Everything. So I'm watching some videos, and I see these comparisons, and I see some crazy stories. Of course, these stories they are probably not so frequent, but there are crazy stories like, oh, the guy was run over by a car and he was bleeding, his leg was broken, but he didn't want people to call the the
Ambulance.
ambulance because it didn't have money.
Yeah.
So, and there are cases. I think there was a recent case. I think some nurses, some male nurses, were kind of forcing the woman. I'm not so sure now if they were forcing her inside the ambulance because she needed to be. Oh no, I think it was. I don't remember, unfortunately. But basically, she was like terrible when it comes to health. Yeah, and because I think actually the nurses were probably removing her from the ambulance. I'm not so sure. Yeah, and she died basically on the street, something like this.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
so sure. I don't remember, unfortunately. I should have done some research before, but anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what do you think about that? How does it? So, what do Americans do to try to have this problem covered? Because here in
Yeah.
Brazil, of course. So, like I said, it's not perfect. So, my wife and I, for example, we are about to get a private healthcare system, healthcare insurance. Yeah,
Mhm.
and a lot of people in Brazil do that.
Right.
It's not but a lot of people, when it comes to comparing that, there's a free one, but you're still going to do it. Yeah, but of course, the majority of people use the free service.
Yeah.
So, tell me about your perspective and how
Yeah.
things work in the U.S.
Okay, so our system is crazy. Because like you say, there's these horrible stories that are just so sad. Just people in the US kind of like, we have a very independent spirit in a lot of ways. And what
I
this
see.
means is I look after me and you go look after you. And if you have
I
a
see.
problem, well, then you fix it. Like a lot of us don't have a feeling of responsibility towards our neighbors or interest in our neighbors.
Interesting.
America has this notion that it's like that. I don't agree, but they think we do better with less government. We do better if people take responsibility for themselves. Like, don't get involved, just like do your own thing. And I'm like, oh, I generally think people are stronger when they work together. There's exceptions, but it's like generally people should cooperate, blah, blah, blah. So there's a big, big difference of opinion in America about that.
I see.
As a result, we have some of the very, very best doctors in the world. I mean, just incredible research. If you have a lot of money, you will get taken care of probably better than anywhere else in the world.
Sure.
But as you start to get poorer, maybe less so. So 8 years ago, we finally passed a law saying, it's very complicated, but it's called Obamacare or the American Health Care Act or American Care Act. And it basically requires people to get insurance. If you're very poor, it's so complicated. Our system is so complicated. If you're very poor, a lot of it is covered. So the government will pay for you so that you get into the system. And what they were supposed to do is they say you have to pay if you don't choose to get your own insurance. Let's say you're in the middle. You're required by law to purchase insurance. But if you don't, we tax you or fine you or whatever. So some people still don't do that, and then they're out of luck. If they haven't chosen to get that insurance, then if they have an accident, they're on their own. They have to pay for all this stuff. And a part of that law, the government said, and all the insurance companies have to offer some insurance that is pretty good. There's all these rules about what that, and there's different sections. There's bronze, silver, and gold.
Yeah.
So like different sort of things.
Sure.
It's very complicated and it's horrible. It's so sad you hear these stories. But one of the things that law did is they said you basically shouldn't be bankrupted by your health insurance. If you have something goes wrong, we will never allow you to go bankrupt. That is horrible. That should never happen. If you have savings or whatever, you should not be thrown out on the street because of medical debt, all this kind of stuff.
I see.
It's still too complicated. I still think that happens. We have all these insurance companies, huge insurance companies that have all of this power to purchase laws and to influence our Congress, like all this stuff.
They're lovely, yeah.
Doctors are very wealthy, and so they have a chance to like tinker with the system, make it work for them. I think in a lot of the rest of the world, doctors are not paid like massive amounts of money. It's a good job, but it's not like you're not going to become a millionaire. We have
Mm.
millionaire doctors, and it's like, so
Yeah.
I've always been pretty lucky because I've always had a pretty good job. So I always have
Mhm.
insurance through my company or whatever.
I see.
It generally works out for me, but I've been lucky. So
Yeah. Huh. But this is yeah. I think in the when in the years Obama was a president, I think I did hear about the Obamacare law.
mhm.
But yeah, I was gonna say that. Okay, you just explained that all insurance companies are obliged to
Mm,
to offer a accessible
right.
insurance plan. Yeah, but this is a very big and good deal for the insurance companies. Yeah, because then everybody has to have insurance now.
Ah,
So
that's one other complication, though, is that law said there's a cap on how much profit an insurance company is allowed to make. And
uh,
it's complicated, as everything is. But
yeah.
it's like that way, yes, here's a bunch of new customers for you, but you are accountable to say, well, what did you spend last year? If you spent $2, but you
Mm,
brought in $6 from all of the
mhm,
people buying insurance, well, no, that's not fair. You have to lower your rates next time,
mhm.
because you're making too much money. Like,
I see.
they shouldn't make that much money, and they did. Like, they're always
Mhm.
trying to say, oh, you went to the doctor, I'm not going to pay for that. It's like, they're always quibbling. The word quibbling?
Yeah. No,
They're
no, no.
arguing. They're like doing
Oh,
little
I see.
little stupid arguments about, like,
Uh-huh.
well, you went to this doctor and you got this service. Well, that's not covered. It's like, yes, it
Uh-huh.
is. Like, and then you
Uh-huh.
have to go to court, or you have to go to this, like,
Oh,
appeals
yeah.
board to say, look, you have to pay for this because here's the little rules, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Well, people don't have time, or they don't
Yeah.
understand the rules, blah 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 blah. So it's this battle between the insurance companies and normal people and the government. So
There's a book about that. Yeah, don't if you have read it or watched the movie, please don't tell me about it.
yeah.
But I do have this book from John Grisham, The
Oh,
Rainmaker.
I've heard the
It's
book, but I
about
have not
that.
read it.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
about basically a big story about poor people fighting against the insurance
Oh yeah,
companies. Yeah.
right.
Huh. Well, yeah. I wouldn't say that. Who am I? I'm just. There's a song. I don't remember the singer now, but basically there's a specific lyrics, specific part of the lyrics that says, "I'm just a Latin American guy." Yeah,
Huh.
so I'm just a Latin American guy,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't say that that was the best. Okay, okay, probably Obama was trying his best, not just him,
right.
but all his team. But that is a really complicated solution. Yeah, obligating everybody to have a healthcare insurance.
Yeah, but the
That's funny.
trouble
I mean, of
is,
course, with the help for the poor people, that's
right.
okay. But it's still very complicated. Yeah.
The trouble for us is that system didn't get a single Republican vote. We have the Democrats and the Republicans.
Hmm.
Republicans, nobody voted for that system. We barely, barely, barely got it because we basically got every Democrat to say we want this system. So they were
Right.
barely, barely able to change the system just enough to make it better for people and
Uh-huh.
get those last few Democratic votes, because there's a lot of Democrats who are like, oh, the cut's expensive. Oh, it's all this extra government, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Hmm.
yes, the world is complicated. Things are complicated, but let's, like, work together and make it better. So it's
Yeah.
like it barely passed. And
Yeah.
it took, I mean, people have been working on that for decades to try to get some kind of national health care going. And now that we have it, I think a lot of people like it, but then a lot of people are like, oh, this crazy system. And so, yeah,
Yeah, it's really complicated. Yeah, because of course, absolutely, this is political as well. Because on one side we have these people who think, as you said, government should do as less things as possible. Yeah,
right.
yeah. But well, it's really hard, yeah, to leave the control, the power on the billionaires' hands with companies and etc. And then on the other side, there's I think the government to try to regulate things, yeah, a
Hmm.
little bit.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
it's complicated.
it's a challenge,
Yeah.
but
Well, all right. More questions, and our podcast is already with 1 hour, so we should get going. Yeah,
okay.
let's see here.
Yeah, I talk a lot.
Um, yeah, this is a question, not from my students, but we
Mm.
don't have what's the word? I was gonna say like take a lot of time, but there's a specific word for that.
Mm.
We don't have to linger. No, I don't know.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't remember.
yeah, that's a good word.
On
Yeah.
that so much, yeah. So geopolitical view when it comes to war and conflict. So for example, you just mentioned about Russia, yeah,
Mm.
dubious country, kind of,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
And would you say that there are some Americans who think very differently from like the status quo, or the general thought? Because I completely understand that. Well, either you are a Democrat or a Republican. In
Mm.
general, you're going to be against Russia. Yeah. Because of, history, because of, many things. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, here in Brazil, for example, we're not so influential in wars. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of people here. There are a lot of people. There are the people who are pro Russia, against Russia,
Mm.
like, we hate the US, we love the US. So there are
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of people, a lot of, but I guess it's not like that in the US. So that's my question. So are there people who really kind of defend, who say, it's not so simple because we have I think NATO, it's
Yeah.
the acronym
Yeah.
in Portuguese we say OTAN. Yeah. So, but they were, uh, like in a kind of an offensive against Russia, maybe.
Mm.
So it's not so simple. But
Mm.
yeah, no, but okay, it's not so simple. But it was Russia who invaded Ukraine, so this is bad. It's Russia creating the war, etc. Anyway,
Mm. Yeah.
so do you think, in general, and are there Americans who have a different point of view, or are
Oh
basically
yeah.
everybody is basically everybody people against
Yeah.
Russia indeed?
There are always going to be, it's a big country, right? 300 million
Yeah.
people plus. There's always going to be people who have opposite opinions. But unfortunately, now we do have a lot of Americans who are willing to just go, whatever, we don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine can either fight for itself or not. We don't care. If Russia wins, too bad. But that opinion goes way back.
Uh-huh.
That kind of, we call it isolationism, where the rest of the
Oh
world
yeah.
can do whatever. This
Uh-huh.
is a very old thing in America, again, because of this independent spirit. We want to every man for himself and every country for themselves. And it's like, blah, blah, blah. Right now, I think a lot of Americans are really mad and horrified at what Russia has done.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they don't have a strong opinion about like NATO. They're like, whatever, like, I don't know. Like the whole thing about NATO is it's supposed to defend, right? All
Yeah.
NATO is supposed to do is defend the European Union. Like that's what they do. They're not trying to be aggressive. If someone wants to join them, great. So I think that's certainly the way I see it. It's like NATO was not being aggressive to Russia. Like Ukraine was thinking about joining NATO someday. It would take a long time. Like there's all these rules about doing it. And Russia felt threatened by that. It's like, why do you feel threatened by someone joining an alliance? Like, my opinion is that in a million billion years, NATO would never attack Russia. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they don't care. Russia is this like nuisance. They're a small nuisance. They happen to have nukes, but it's like, whatever. Please, Russia, do your own thing, leave other people alone, and you're fine. We don't care. The whole thing is, Russia is this aggressive thing, and they feel like they are entitled to own a lot of other countries. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, they feel like that's their territory. They should own it. Those countries should not exist. That should be Russian. And it's like, what are you talking about? Leave them alone. Let them do whatever they want to. But unfortunately, in America, we have a lot of people who are kind of sympathetic to Russia. they see this very strong leader who's very powerful, or they see him as very powerful, and that's what they like. Putin does not really pay attention to laws. He doesn't really care about rules and regulations and alliances. He wants to do whatever he wants to do. And I think a lot of Americans are like, yeah, that sounds good. He should be able to do whatever he wants to do. If he can get away with it, great. They feel the same way about our country. They feel the same way about Brazil. If Brazil wants to vote for Bolsonaro and he can get away with whatever he wants to do, he's a strong man and he should be able to do it, because laws are just a problem. And I'm like, I like laws. Laws are like, there's bad laws, but overall, you sort of need laws. Like that's what makes you a civilization.
Yeah.
So it's kind of exasperating. You throw your hands up and go, oh, but it has real consequences now. Like the things that are happening in the world now, like if China feels like, well, they can just get away with taking Taiwan, if the world lets them just take Taiwan, well, that's illegal, but maybe they can just do it. They have a big military. Is the world really going to get together and fight back if China just takes Taiwan? Well, we're kind of seeing that in Ukraine, the world is cooperating pretty well, right? They're helping Ukraine pretty well to fight versus Russia. We could do better, but we're doing okay. And that sends a message to China. Hey, if you try to take Taiwan, maybe the world will cooperate to prevent you from doing it. So it's very worrisome. I don't know what's going to happen in Ukraine. I really hope that we can kind of push Russia back and say, go back and live in your own space, do your own thing, leave Ukraine alone. But I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a complicated question, right? It's very, very big question.
No, yeah. And when you said, on the other hand, when you said about the U.S. and that there's this strong culture, basically, of being independent and etc., I'm not so sure on the rest of the world, though. Yeah, because I think when it comes to the military, as you said, and political views and ideas, I think the U.S. is always there somehow. You know.
Yes. We have a very powerful influence around the world.
Yeah.
But there's some people here who wish we didn't.
Oh yeah.
There's some people here who like, that is so much, that's so expensive. They think it doesn't get us anything, that we just pay and pay and pay, but we get nothing back. I think, yes, we pay, but we get a lot of we get influence, but we also get people really trusting the US. When the US does things right, we're an ally, right? We're a friend, and we're not just looking after ourselves. We're supposed to be looking after the fact that there are laws and the fact that there are policies and treaties and cooperation. That's the best part, I think, of when America is active in the world. I think it's when we're boosting democracy, right? When it's like, we believe in democracy, or we're supposed to, and we're helping democracies around the world be stronger and fight back against authoritarianism. Orban in Hungary, I don't know if you follow him, but he's not a big fan of democracy. It's just, there's a lot of things like that around the world, and we'll see who wins. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy, but anyway, I think we could continue talking about that for a long time.
Yeah,
but anyway, let's continue. Okay, let's see here. Okay, this is a question from another doctor, another student. I have 2 students who are doctors. I want to focus on that area, maybe,
Yeah.
So, but her question is a little bit different. But nothing to do so much with medicine. But she asked, do students really receive a vacation assignment as a kind of prep for the next year? So probably, I think we see this sometimes in movies as well. Yeah, and also
Mm,
maybe because in our university life, yeah, maybe we hear about other countries, and I don't know, maybe this came, you know, to mind.
yeah.
So, is there really what really happens in these supposedly assignments for vacation?
Okay, so it's been a very long time since I was in school. So maybe it's different now, but my impression is zero. Zero assignments over summer vacation. Summer vacation is kids screw around and do whatever they want to. So
Yeah, like spring break. Yeah, is it?
yeah, by the time you are a teenager, maybe you have a job during the summer, so that's what keeps you busy. But
Mhm.
nobody thinks about school during the summer. Now, again, maybe that's changed now, so there's assignments. I think that um, I think that probably very good students who have who have parents who are very involved will go, oh, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z over the summer so that you can be ready for next year. I've never really talked to anybody who does that. I think really like kids who want to go to college, like who have to
Mm,
be like fancy in order to like earn their way into college or to a good college,
mhm,
they will be more active with maybe kind of like impressive things during the
mhm,
summer so that they're, I don't know, organized sports or some
mm.
craft or dancing or like something really like where they're
Ah,
kind of demonstrating that they're a talented person.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but in terms of the teacher saying, I want you to read these books over the
I
summer
see.
and I
Uh-huh.
want you to write a paper, I've never heard of it. Now, in college, same thing. You might take a summer class. You might go, oh, I'm going to like
Mm,
do extra work during the summer, either to catch up or to get a little head start on finishing earlier. But when I was in like undergraduate college, I just went to work. I just like took a job in the summer, didn't think about school, just like da 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 da. By the time I got to grad school, then it was all the time. You're always working, like it's all
I
the
see.
same. Maybe
Yeah.
you do some teaching in the summer or whatever.
Mm,
So
cool.
yeah, yep.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Yeah, so it's a lie. Yeah.
I mean,
Basically.
again, like it's been how long ago was I in school? 25 years? 27 years ago.
Uh,
So I am out of date, maybe.
yeah, well, yeah, but maybe you would have heard about it. Yeah. I
Uh-huh.
don't. So probably I don't know. Maybe it's just rumors. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
Or maybe they're like other countries, I feel like have a much shorter summer break. And there's been studies about whether or not it's better for kids to not
Mm.
have these big breaks because they do fall behind.
Oh, I
And,
see.
we could talk about the US education system. It's not so great sometimes. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's problems, especially for poor kids. Like we have this thing where if you have public schools, you have in an expensive area of town, the taxes from that expensive area of town go
Mm-hmm.
to local schools. They do not
I
go to
see.
poor schools. So in a
Oh,
poor part of town, the parents don't. Oh, are you still there?
no,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
In a poorer part of town, the parents don't have as much money to pay in taxes. So the school is poorer. So they can't get good books or they can't get good walls or ceiling or whatever. Kids are hungry. So
Mm,
they don't learn as well. And
I
then they
see.
have this huge summer break. Well, they were learning to read, but then they kind of fell back because they don't read at all during the summer. They come
Mhm.
back to third grade or fourth grade and they're like, oh, what was I doing? How did the letters work? I mean, it's sad. So,
Yeah,
you know, eh, yeah, it's this big thing. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, for big countries, educational, healthcare,
Mm,
these systems, security, there are always problems. It's really
mhm.
hard to get everything, working near perfection. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Final question now, Vince. Thank you so much
Oh, yeah, it's been
again.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been so fun. Yeah, as I thought it would be. And this question is not actually from my student, but from a close friend. His name is Ari,
Aha.
also known as Arizona.
Okay.
So he'll be listening probably to that.
Uh-huh.
And he asked a kind of a, I don't know. Well, anyway, the question is, can you understand the Brazilian accent when,
Mm.
of course, when people speak English, when
Hmm.
Brazilians speak English? I don't know if you have already had this experience because I'm not so sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you could base this question on me, because of course I'm an English teacher, so I don't have much accent probably. But maybe not just Brazilian, but foreigners who come
Yeah.
to the U.S. and or who go to the U.S. and they're still learning because it's
Mm.
funny when I teach Brazilians, they will say terrible things in English when it comes to grammar, structure,
Oh,
etc. But I
yeah.
will understand them, of course,
Yeah.
because well, I have a similar point of view. Yeah,
Hmm.
maybe there's creating a sentence thinking in Portuguese, so no, that's not how it works. Yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes the pronunciation also they pronounce it
Right.
like as they would in Portuguese. Yeah, so I
Right.
understand, but would an American understand what they're saying?
Right. Right.
Probably not. So that's the question.
Mm.
Do you have any experience like this,
Uh-huh.
trying to
Yeah.
understand foreigners
Yes.
and their
So
accents?
I do have thoughts about this because I grew up in Little Oregon. Oregon's very white. We have a lot of white people. We have,
I see.
yeah. So up until when I was 18, white, 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 white.
Uh-huh.
Not a lot of people from other parts of the world. A few now and then we get some transfer student. I had a classmate from Kuwait when I was in fourth or fifth grade. So it's like he had a strong accent. I had a transfer student from Sweden or something like that when I was in high school. But I mean, it's a lot of white people. Okay. So then I went to college. So I went to University of Oregon. All of a sudden, I'm in the dorms. I'm in the dormitories, all
Mm,
kinds of kids from all over the world.
uh-huh.
Cyprus and Indonesia and China and I don't know, South Africa, all over the place. And so all of a sudden, I'm like, ooh, this is fun. Like, I get to meet people from all over the world.
Mhm.
My first job, really, my first job out of school was working for a company that had people from Thailand, more people from China, people from India. So I like all through my career, I have always worked at places that had lots of people from all over the world. So I think I got training early on to kind of learn to listen to people who speak differently than I do,
Uh-huh.
who, maybe they have strong accent
Mm.
and they have kind of a shaky understanding of the syntax, right? The
Mhm.
grammar. And so
Sure.
in their mind, they're just directly translating from their own language. That's all they can
Exactly.
do.
Yeah.
If you learn your language when you're older, all you can really do, right, is just like translate and just hope that the person understands. So I enjoy that. I enjoy talking to people who, their English is either like good or terrible. I think it's a fun challenge to kind of work out and see what I understand about this. I have a friend who is a professor. Her specialty is teaching people how to teach English as a second language. I think I talked to you about her a little bit.
Oh, I
And
think.
so she like academically studies what it's like to teach those people and what process kids are going through or adults are going through when they're learning this other language.
Mhm.
Long story short, I like to think about Vladimir Nabokov. Do you know this author? He
No.
wrote books like Lolita and Pale Fire,
Uh,
amazing books in English.
mhm.
He was born Russian. He learned
Oh.
English, I don't know, when he was like a teenager or a 20-year-old, I think. I don't think he learned it until a little later in his life. He wrote some of the best literature in English ever. So it's absolutely possible to like learn, and then do English at such a high level that
Mhm.
you are dazzling people whose English is like native.
Uh-huh.
So it's like I love language. I love novels. I love literature, and it's like all of the different levels of it. I just find it all very fascinating. So
Yeah.
I think I have a lot of patience for accents, or a little patience
Mhm.
for like, oh, but not every American does. And
Mhm.
I wonder about like in Brazil when someone comes in and they're not so good at Portuguese or they're not so good at Brazilian Portuguese. I think some Brazilians are probably like, I don't have time for this. Learn to speak better,
I
right?
don't
They
think
don't.
so.
They get angry. But
Uh-huh.
some people are like, oh, great, you're from another part of the world. This is fun, right? Not
Uh-huh.
everybody thinks it's fun. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so when it comes to Brazilians,
Oh, yeah.
I think, as from my experience, Brazilians love foreigners.
Okay, good, 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 good.
It's funny. Actually, there's a YouTube guy. He's called. There are so many actually Americans who come to Brazil and learn Portuguese. Yeah, I mean
Mhm.
so many. They're like I don't know 4 or 5
Right. That's a lot.
that I know. But do have YouTube
Yeah.
channels and also they're big. Well,
Yeah.
so how many others aren't there? Yeah.
Yep.
I think in one of them were specifically saying that not all Americans will be mad or anything.
Mm.
Some of them will even think, "Oh, this is so cute. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
trying to speak."
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, but I think I would say everybody, almost everybody here in Brazil, we would never be like impatient, or
Mm.
like
That's good. Yeah.
yeah,
That's good.
he's trying to speak Portuguese. That's so
And they
beautiful.
want to
Yeah,
help, right? They want to
yeah,
they'll take a little extra time to go, oh, do you mean this or do you mean this?
yeah,
Really, really
exactly.
trying to be helpful. Like
Uh-huh.
France has a bad reputation where they're like, if you go and you try to speak French, they're just like, forget about it, stop, just
Oh
speak
yeah.
English, right?
Uh-huh.
They're mad, they're very snobby about their language.
Mhm.
When I
You're
went
right.
to France, I found that was not true. I thought the people were very nice to me.
Uh-huh.
I never had a problem. I was there for a week, so it's not that long.
Oh
But
yeah.
I think it depends on the attitude of the speaker too. If
Oh.
you go in like loud Americans are just like, it's like they're not even trying to learn to speak French. So
Oh
they're
yeah.
like, it's like obvious they haven't put any time into it. I feel like whatever your language, if you have someone new and they've shown that they've made an attempt, they're
Mhm.
trying, like
Yeah.
be nice to them. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So uh, that's what I did when I was in France. I tried, like I studied before I went there. And so
Mhm.
I did my best. And I thought people were very kind to me.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm sure I was really, really bad, but I was trying. So they like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, we in this conversation we basically could say that some things are true, but
Mm,
not everything. Yeah. So
right.
that's why I think that was one of the motivations that made me, huh? Why don't we talk about cultural things? Yeah, and
Mm,
actually, you suggested that topic first.
mm,
But I thought it was a really good idea because, yeah, so many things, yeah, that we believe that work in that way, and sometimes it is a little bit, sometimes it isn't, yeah. So
yeah.
it's definitely good to have the opportunity to, try to understand a little bit more about everything. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very complicated, and I took a linguistic class or a couple in college, just random. I always like language. I'm like, oh, let me learn about language,
Uh-huh.
and oof, it's complicated. My
Yeah.
friend who's the professor now, her specialty is more social linguistics, so less
Mm.
about like all the different sentence structures. She finds that boring. She doesn't want to know about like the history of a word, like whatever. But what she
Uh-huh.
likes is how language shapes a relationship, or how people
Mm.
who are in like a manager and an employee, like the
Mm.
different types of language they might be speaking versus two friends, right? All of
Mm.
this stuff. So yeah, and in fact, she has an even other specialty, even more narrow, about the use of humor in situations where one person has a better facility with language than the other, or when several students are trying to learn language and they try to use a joke between the two of them and it doesn't quite go right. It's like
Mm.
failed humor. You try to tell a
Uh-huh.
joke and the other person's like, what? I don't understand. How do they recover from that? And do they laugh about it, or is it awkward? So that's her like her research career is like this. And there's like 10 people in the world who have this specialty of failed humor. So
Oh,
it's
that's
this funny thing.
interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
she's great.
absolutely. Wow, really,
Yeah.
really fun. Uh-huh. That's cool. Well, maybe I can tell you a joke to finish our
Oh,
conversation.
good. I like
I
a good
heard
joke.
this
Yeah.
one in Portuguese, of course, but it's definitely gonna work in English as well.
Okay.
Oh, but maybe you know this one. It's supposedly the joke that made Batman laugh. Do you know this one?
Batman left.
Yeah, he
Oh,
laughed. Like,
laughed.
yeah,
Laughed. Okay. No, I
okay.
don't know. Yeah.
So, two crazy people. I mean, yeah, they're really crazy. They're like insane, and they're running out from an asylum,
Mm.
running away actually.
Yeah.
And then well, they're in the middle of the forest, and then they kind of reach a cliff. I think it's a cliff. Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's nowhere to go. Actually,
Yeah.
there is, but there's not a bridge.
Oh.
So they say, one of them suggests, so I have an idea. I can turn on this light, turn on this flashlight
Yeah.
to make it as a bridge, and then you cross the bridge like on the light to get to the other side. And
Okay.
then the other guy said, "Ha, do you think I'm stupid?" And then I turn off the flashlight.
Right.
that, was the,
Then they fall.
that was the joke, actually. So send this video to your friend. She's gonna
I'm
gonna
so
like it.
confused. That joke confused me. Wait. So Batman laughed at that joke.
Yeah, he thought it was funny, but
Oh.
apparently. But did you understand the joke?
Yeah, well, yes, but I don't understand how it relates to Batman.
Oh no, yeah, there's no relationship. Actually.
Oh, okay.
It's just a regular joke. The Joker
Okay.
told Batman.
Right. I like. Okay. Because when you said that at the beginning, all through the
Ah.
joke, I'm trying to think. Well, how is this going? I was thinking, how you turn on the searchlight to let Batman know that there's a problem. I was thinking it was going to be that. So yeah.
I kind of ruined the joke.
No. It's great because it's a great example of like literally the words that we said and the facial expressions, all of this stuff. It all goes into like all of this study of like, well, how do people recover? It's so great. Yeah, it's great. But no, don't worry.
I'm gonna cut this part and send it to you so that you can send it to your friend.
That sounds good.
Maybe she will like.
She will enjoy it a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, do more research.
Got it.
Well,
got it.
Vince, thank you so much.
You're welcome. This was fun.
It was. Yeah, so maybe you could would you say with from your experience with as you just said, people from all over the world and trying to speak your language, do you have a tip maybe to my students when it comes to speaking? There's something I tell them. I had a student who was trying to learn English. Unfortunately, he stopped taking the classes, but he did speak Spanish. But the thing is, he didn't really speak Spanish, but because he would use, because Spanish and Portuguese are relatively very close. Yeah, there are some words that are the same words. So he would speak Spanish as he were speaking Portuguese, basically. You know, he didn't care at all about the accent. Nothing. He would just many times speak a Portuguese word like the way he would, as if they were speaking Portuguese, but he knows that word is the same in Spanish, so he would say it anyway. And then, of course, probably throughout the years, he had to learn that I can use this word because this one is different. Yeah,
right.
So, but I thought this was really interesting because, he would definitely the kind of person who had difficulties learning a new language or learning a new thing. He was already a little bit old, so he didn't have much time to study. And he was also a very practical guy. He didn't like studying so much. So he wanted to just practice. And, I guess, so I should adapt my classes to his way. Because if we can speak So that's it. He was never embarrassed. So if he made a mistake when speaking, he didn't care at all. He was just trying to communicate. And
Yeah.
then this was so interesting when I noticed this, because and then I started saying this to my students. Don't worry so much. Yeah, just
Yeah.
speak. Just try to say something, maybe people will understand you, people will help you, and if they don't understand, no problem, you will learn from that from that mistake. Yeah.
Hmm.
But of course, I think, I don't know if it's a Brazilian thing or maybe this is just a general human condition.
Mm.
They are afraid to make mistakes. Yeah.
Right.
So they avoid speaking,
Right.
and avoid practicing so much. Anyway, that was my perception. What about you? Would you have any tips? So you were trying to learn French, as you just mentioned. Yeah. So would you
Yeah.
have any tips for
Yeah.
students?
So whenever I go on a trip, I like to learn at least a few words, right? Hello, goodbye,
Sure.
be
Yeah.
nice, right? At
Mhm.
least, maybe more. So I have spent some time learning little bits of language wherever I go, sometimes
Mm.
better than others because I have more time.
Sure.
So the best language I ever got to was German. I took maybe 2 years in college, so I had like a decent amount of experience.
Uh-huh.
And then this is just background, I guess. So then when I went to Germany, or went to the Netherlands, and I had a friend who like spoke some German, and I met his parents, whatever. I was so shy. Like if
Mm.
they were speaking in German, I like to listen, but
Mhm.
I feel shy about like, oh, I don't want to be dumb. I sound much like an idiot. And one or two times where I really had a conversation where it was like went on for 5 or 10 minutes and, back and forth. Well, that's hardly anything, right? But it
Mhm.
went good. It went fine. They kind of got the idea of what I was talking
Yeah.
about. They didn't mind. That was my best language. Like everything else is worse than that. And it's like, well, that's sad, right? Like of all the study that I did, I really should have tried more to do it. So I like your advice. I think your advice is really good. And I think it relates to chess too. That in
Mhm.
chess, you have to fail. You have to make
Yeah.
mistakes because you learn from your mistakes, ideally. Even if you don't study your mistake, your brain kind of understands, right?
Yeah.
You learn something even if you don't know that you learned it. So
Yeah.
I think that's good advice. I also think don't be afraid to do things that are actually really like more complicated.
Mm.
Like, if you think your level is here, at least when you're reading or listening, try to like pick a topic that you don't know much about that's more advanced than you can handle. And you don't have to understand everything. Just let yourself kind of like
Yeah.
hear it or try it.
Mhm.
Who cares? Like, you won't get perfect, but it might be fun. Um, yeah, English is so we bring in words from everywhere, right?
Mm.
We
Yeah.
have words from all over the world, all over history, and it's hard. Like, do not be sad about how hard English is. Like, all of your students are trying something that's really challenging,
Yeah.
and so anyone brave enough to do it, good job. You're doing
Yeah.
great. so, so,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
keep it up and kind of enjoy it. Like I think that the more you go up in learning it, the more you can be rewarded with amazing stories or short
Mm.
stories or
Yeah.
whatever. And I mean jokes. Like we have so many double meanings,
Mm.
quadruple meanings, all of this stuff. There's
Yeah.
opportunity for like jokes that are like you can't really do in other languages. So that's a fun. I mean,
Yeah.
every language I think has that, but
Yeah.
it's fun. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah,
Okay. So once again, Vince, thank you so
thank
much.
you.
It was really cool. And well, who knows? You come to Brazil sometime,
I hope.
and then we can finally meet, in person, and
Yeah,
we record a second podcast or a
and
second video.
in person, or you come to
Exactly.
you visit the U.S. someday.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it's possible. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yep.
So thank you so much. Have
Sure.
a nice rest of your day.
You
Yeah,
too.
and thank you for participating.
Sure thing. We'll see you
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. And now I can't. Okay, we finished. I was
Yes.
just good in that part, and I
Uh-huh.
can't because I can't stop recording. So For some reason, I don't know how to do that. It
Oh.
would just stop recording when I.
Yeah, they won't
Oh
let me
no,
change.
I know how to do it. Just a second.
Mm.
Let me see.